I'm on my own, broken alone. I feel the rain crashing down all around this empty town. I'm searching for the lost and found, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare. Just stare, 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near, in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares through. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me.
hot. Our recording. Music is off. Switching over. Welcome to Hardcore Penn State Football. Hope everyone had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I know we took Sunday off and you missed us a bunch, but we are back to discuss Michigan State. The off season, if you will, or the preseason to the off season news is already in full swing. So we have a lot of news to talk about, some recruiting news, some portal news, some NFL news, and then of course we're going to discuss the potential where Penn State could land in the bowl season, as well as a bunch of fan questions. Stay with us, and we will get right to you after this quick intermission. Welcome in Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, as always, the great Sean Kane. How are you doing today, Sean?
Doing wonderful on this hump day, Corey. And for our YouTube people, that was a pretty quick intermission there for us.
That was a quick intermission. If you're on YouTube, you don't get the beautiful intro. You don't get it. If you are on YouTube right now, let us know where you're watching it from. Let us know how you're doing. Maybe I know we posed the question on Twitter, but let us know what your favorite part of Thanksgiving was, what your favorite part of the meal was, and let us know what's up with you. I will say this: we recorded on Thanksgiving, the morning of Thanksgiving, and so it's almost been a week since I talked to you, Sean. But how was your Thanksgiving?
Very good, very good. I went over to the girlfriend's family's house. It was delicious meal, and then we went to my cousin's house for dessert, and I went over to my parents' house for about an hour. So we had a good day. We watched football, watched the Cowboys game. The Lions game was weirdly good, and it's usually not, even though it wasn't the expected result. The Bills won. And watched the Egg Bowl at night, and that was kind of a crazy game, as the Egg Bowl always is. So we had a very, very good Thanksgiving. How about you, Corey?
That's what I like to hear. Yeah. So obviously, I was down in Florida. I took the recording stuff with me down to Florida, which that's when I knew I was kind of we're into the thick of things here, Sean. I brought my stuff with me. Just to record 1 hour episode on Thanksgiving Day. That's when I knew that we're taking this podcasting thing for real. When I decided to do that, it was good. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy, but it was a good time. The food was delicious. The turkey was solid. I don't know if I could specifically choose one thing I liked the most. I don't know what they did differently, what my mom did differently, but I thought the in-bird stuffing was the best it's ever been. And then she says afterward that she actually seasoned it for once, and I was like, well, there you go. I don't know. I mean, she usually put salt and pepper and stuff on it, but she's like, yeah, I threw in some, I don't know what she said, garlic powder, some red, I don't know, some chili powder, maybe some red pepper flakes. I don't know, but it was much better. I was like, you haven't been seasoning it this whole time? So no, the dirt, because the dry bird or the dry stuffing, that gets seasoned heavily, but I don't know if she's just assuming the turkey seasoning and all that was going to be enough, but this year was the wet stuffing was much better, so that was nice to see. And then the traffic coming home, Sean, wasn't bad on Sunday. I got home, left early, but I got home at a decent time. It took me 2 less hours than it took me to get down there, so that was really nice too.
Interesting that you guys have in-bird stuffing. I never had that before.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you how it's actually done, because I've never had to make it. But yeah, we have in-bird stuffing and we have out-bird stuffing. So we got both going on.
There's 100% chance that at Friendsgiving, if I made in-bird stuffing, we'd all have salmonella. So I am not experimenting with that anytime soon, until I'm a more seasoned chef.
I heard your turkey was pretty good.
Yeah. I think we had good reviews. It all went, which is great. So we actually didn't have any leftover turkey, which pretty good sign. Pretty good on me, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if you don't have very many leftovers, that usually means something good happened. Um, Sean, we have a lot to discuss,
Wasn't there a
and
game Saturday?
there was a game Saturday. Yeah, Penn
Okay,
State
yeah.
won 35-16. I'm sure people know that by now. Penn State's improved to 10-2 on the season as well. Obviously not playing the Big Ten championship. Michigan rolled Ohio State, in case you didn't know, but I'm sure you knew that as well. And Penn State got some help. If it wasn't a sure thing, it's pretty much a sure thing now, barring, again, conference championship craziness. Penn State will most likely be going to a New Year's Six bowl. They got help from South Carolina, who beat Clemson. They got help from someone else too.
Clemson lost, and
LSU lost. Yes, thank you.
A&M.
A&M, which I was hinting at everybody that wasn't going to be an easy game out there, but so that helped things. And now, Sean, we kind of are in a weird part of the season. So like we're going to discuss. I guess I can throw the show notes up there for everybody in a second. But we're kind of at a weird point in the season now because the bowl game hasn't happened yet. We don't even know where we're going yet. And we're not quite ready to call the season finished. It's a weird time. I'll get to it in a second. We have a lot of Penn State news to talk about, but they're coming out with the end of season awards. People are foregoing bowl games already. People are already saying they're coming back. I mean, it's just like a frenzy of news at the moment, Sean.
I do like the episode title.
You saw that? You like that?
Yes, I saw that. It's very creative. But yeah, there's a lot going on. And guys, like we talk the most, and this will be true for the future as well during the season, but the in-season episodes are the easiest to do. And because there's just so much to talk about. And I'm curious, like into the off season, like how, I know what we're going to do because we did it last year for those of you who were with us, but curious to see like how everybody else handles the off season, because I think there have been a lot of new podcasts that have sprouted up in the summer, going at August, going into the season, and then after. But yeah, this is the first time we'll be doing between the last game of the year and the bowl game, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in that last month, that December month now with the early signing day.
Yeah, it's gonna be busy, and you're right. I mean, we're not going anywhere. We're gonna be going twice a week still until the bowl game, give or take. We'll get a little hazy around Christmas, but we'll figure it out. And then after the bowl game, we'll probably begin to cycle out to once a week again for the off season, if you will. But Sean, I already have a couple ideas for some different things we can discuss in the off season. Obviously, the off season is not much of an off season. I mean, we really didn't struggle to have things to discuss pretty much every week. And the next, it was the blue and white game. The next, it's, the summer. And once the summer hits, it's like, it's here again. We started doing the weekly previews of teams, and then right back into the season. It'll be September before you know it. And based off of the fan questions we got, people are very excited for 2023. We'll get to that in just a second. But a lot of fan questions today. We're going to talk Michigan State a little bit in a second. Quickly into the PSU and the NFL, and then we'll finish off with bowl projections and kind of looking ahead. Although we'll be kind of looking ahead a decent amount today as well, with the fan questions especially. I want to start with news though, Sean, and I don't have it up on the show schedule, but I want to start with news first. Let's just go with the big one. I mean, there's a lot of big ones, but let's go with the big positive one because that's the name of the title of the episode. And if you don't know what the title of the episode it is Not So Fashanu. I like that. I thought that was pretty clever.
I like it. I didn't want to spoil it, so I let Corey say it because he came up with it. So
then, honestly, it took me all like 3 seconds to think of it. To be honest with you,
we have a creative one here.
That's what I'm known for. If you haven't heard yet, which I don't think we have dropped the F-bomb on Twitter, but I think it was well received. Offensive tackle Olu Fashanu, not Fashanu. I think the goal for next year, by the way, is to get his name right every time. Olu Fashanu will be returning for another year at Penn State. The soon to be 20-year-old decided, hey, not so Fashanu. I'm gonna come back. He was projected to be a first round pick, projected by some to be a top 10 prospect. In some cases, I think The Athletic has him a top 5 prospect. He's deciding to come back. Says the injury he's currently facing is not serious, and still basically said, hey, I got things I want to accomplish personally. I've got things collectively we'd like to accomplish, and he's coming back. This is big time, Sean. It's one thing. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't know if anyone has ever, and this is no discredit to anyone else, but I think this might be the biggest returning player in like this new era of foregoing bowls and deciding to come back. I don't know if there's been a bigger name coming, like a true surefire first round like this coming back to Penn State.
There hasn't been, especially not in the past 10 or so years, like you said, when you get people opting out of bowls and all that, and there are less and less true seniors declaring. There's more and more underclassmen declaring for the draft than ever before, and you can't blame them, especially when you're a guy like Olu who's projected to be a top 10 pick. But we tease this a little, guys. Because when I saw the news, of course, I was thrilled, but I wasn't shocked because there's a few things with Olu that makes him a little different than your typical top 10 pick. Number one, he's only 19 years old. That's very, very young to be entering the NFL draft. He'd be among the youngest people in the draft. Number two, he only has 8 games of game tape. And teams who are picking in the top 10 to 15, those are premium picks. And GMs, a lot of the time, are going to be more inclined to go toward safer prospects than somebody who, they look at Olu and they're like, yeah, he balled out in all the games he was in, no question about it. But that's a very small sample size. So a guy like him, especially maybe if he didn't have the greatest combine or pro day, he could go from being projected in the top 10 in November to being in the 20s. So you might say, well, what's the difference? There are millions of differences, millions and millions of dollars lost. So I think it made more sense for Olu to come back than a guy like Saquon or even a guy like Micah, because they had all kinds of tape. And even though Micah didn't play his junior year, he played 2 full seasons. So it made sense in a lot of ways. And getting a degree is very important to Olu Fashanu and his family, and he may be an All-American on the football field and also an academic All-American. So it didn't necessarily surprise me that much, but I was very, very happy to see it, and it wasn't a certainty that he'd be back by any stretch.
Yeah, I think when he got banged up, there's definitely began to be maybe some. If he plays the last 6 or 7 games, that's literally almost twice as much tape as he currently has. For his resume. So who knows if that maybe changes things, but maybe he'll play in the bowl game. We don't know the specifics yet, but it's big time. I mean, you're looking at Drew Aller now coming in to be the starter next year, and his left tackle spot is now secure. Just again, friendly reminder that Hunter Norzad, current backup left guard, but has played a bunch since Landon Tangwa got hurt. He already said he's coming back. So you have 2 pieces of the offensive line already coming back. We'll get into it a little bit later because it's a fan question, but the depth chart for the offensive line already looking much better than what maybe we thought it was going to be 5 months ago and surely a year ago. So that's nice to see. Let's get into the other big piece, kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum, if you will, and that's Joey Porter Jr. declaring for the NFL draft, foregoing the bowl game. Don't even know what the bowl game is yet, but he will not be playing in it. Thanked coaches, thanked his family. Not a surprise here, Sean. He did, and we got to give him some credit. He did try to play some in the Michigan State game. Again, that appendectomy wasn't too long ago. Clearly wasn't 100%. I think he was only out there for maybe the first drive, second drive, and definitely wasn't 100%. But I respect the man for wanting to play in that game, knowing that he very well could be a first-round pick in the NFL, and really had nothing to prove. I think he just wanted to be out there with his team one last time, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Joey Porter Jr. is going to be a great pro. I have almost zero doubt about that, provided he stays healthy and everything. He's been a great player at Penn State, and we'll miss him. Selfishly, I would have liked him for the bowl game, but I understand. I mean, you want to get ready for the draft and everything, and that's 2022. It's not 1992 anymore. So that's the way it goes all over the country. So best of luck to Joey Porter Jr. I'm really, really happy he came through. And if there's a Joey Porter the third, I hope he comes Penn State's way.
Yeah, we might have to wait a little bit for that one.
Little bit.
Probably still be podcasting though when that does happen. Yeah, I think it was just one of those seasons by Joey Porter Jr. that I don't know if we'll necessarily remember it in 10 years. Like, I won't know he played at Penn State, but I don't know if I'll be able to point out that many specific plays that he made. The Purdue game to me is something that's always going to stick out in my mind because they went after him so many times. But I think he's going to be one of those guys that Penn State fans are going to be like, yeah, he played at Penn State when they're talking to people on Sundays, watching Joey Porter Jr. on Sunday playing. So he's a pro's pro. I think that's just the best way to put it. We knew this was going to pretty much go this way. We weren't, I guess, keeping an eye on this one as much because we knew it was coming, but I am interested to see what else goes on. So as far as the secondary, Sean, so obviously Jair Brown will be done. He hasn't decided if he's playing in the bowl game or not. And he got screwed. We'll get to that in a second. I am curious, Sean, about like, is Daquan Hardy out, or does he have one more year if he wants it?
I believe he's back. If he wants to be back, he only had so many 6-year seniors, and everybody else is eligible to come back. So
yeah, I think he has an extra year. Johnny Dixon has an extra year if he wants it. So those are two guys, in my opinion, I'm very interested in. Keaton Ellis technically can come back too, so he's an interesting guy. The secondary really could still be really good next year. And Marquise Wilson will be gone. But he decided to be a part of the senior day. But yeah, the secondary still could be really good next year. And I think that's what makes the Joey Porter Jr. leaving not as big of a gut punch, but he's definitely going to be potentially the first Penn State defensive back ever taken in the first round of the NFL draft. So that shall be cool. Sean, I want to go to Big Ten people. And Big Ten first team, second team, third team people, if I may.
You may. I'll allow it.
Let's see if I can get this right. So I'm gonna start with the defense. I'm just gonna read them all off. So hold your applause to the end. Joey Porter Jr. earned first team All Big Ten from both the coaches and the media at defensive back. PJ Mustafa earned All Big Ten second team from the coaches, and Abdul Carter made All Big Ten second team from the media. And I haven't missed Jair Brown, just so everyone knows, or Kalen King, because Jair Brown and Kalen King are both All Big Ten third team by the coaches and the media. And
so is Adisa Isaac.
Yeah, and so is Adisa Isaac. But Adisa Isaac just from the coaches.
Just from the coaches. Yes.
And then Isaac by the media. Chop Robinson, Curtis Jacobs. Forgot about Curtis Jacobs and not, I guess, if you told me Curtis Jacobs was only an honorable mention, that would kind of surprise me going into the year. But Chop Robinson, Curtis Jacobs, Nick Tarburton, which I thought was a nice inclusion. Johnny Dixon were all honorable mentions. I mean, that's 3 different defensive ends, Sean, that got honorable mentions, which is pretty impressive. I believe that's the defensive guys. I should also say Nick Singleton got second team return specialists by the media, and Singleton and Barney or Moore, the punter, were honorable mention by the coaches. And Jake Pinniger did not finish the year very strong, but he got honorable mention by the media. So that's the defense. That was 13 players in total, led by Joey Porter Jr. The biggest one to me here, Sean, is the Jair Brown not being a first team defensive back. We tweeted their statistics. He had the same stats, if not better stats, depending on who you ask, as the first team safeties. I didn't even do the stats on the second team safeties, but I'm assuming he probably had better stats there. And as far as just what he meant to the defense, and I know probably a lot of people can complain. Every Big Ten fan is going to complain and wonder why their guy's not on there. But and I no discredit to Kalen King, because I think Kalen King did some great things. But Jair Brown, if I had to choose one to be upset about, I'm going to choose Jair Brown. I think they both honestly could have been first team. I think they both definitely should have been second team. But the fact that Jair Brown wasn't first team, that drives me a little bit nuts.
And, the thing is, the defense falls apart without Jair Brown. And if you watch Penn State on a weekly basis, you would know that. You would know that the defense is sort of, as much as you could build around a safety, it's built around what Jair Brown does. Moving him in the box, having him in coverage, having him force turnovers. Manny Diaz, we all know how much of an emphasis he puts on turnovers. Well, he's the best one at forcing turnovers. So, yeah, for him to be third team, I mean, you're just not going to convince me that there are how many other better safety or defensive backs than him in the conference. I just don't believe it. I don't. I don't buy it. I think they got him maybe for PBUs. But that's what happens when you just look at stats and you just read stats. Well, read the turnover stat. I mean, if you want to go by stats, but and that's why a lot of these awards, like the Heisman, I think is a joke anymore. I think it to a degree it always has been, but it's people that don't watch the games. They just go with narratives and that's it. Here's a hot take for you. Blake Corum is going to be a Heisman finalist. I don't know if he's the best running back on his team. And he's going to be a Heisman finalist. And no disrespect to him, but that's the truth. Watch the games.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that I said after that Michigan game. I think I might have said it even before the Michigan game, that I thought Edwards was, when it's all said and done, Edwards is going to end up being a better back at Michigan than Corum is, which is scary. But I'm with you on that hot take. It is what it is. You're right. This season is a season for that, and I get it. But that one was one that I thought, even if you just go by the name, I mean, he led the team in interception, or the country in interceptions last year. I thought he was a household name among Big Ten people by this point. So I thought even with the name, it wasn't like he was a random guy that got those statistics. I thought a lot of people knew of him by this point. But again, Jair Brown's been a guy who's been kind of cast off the island many times before in his career. And so if anything, it's just going to fire him up even more. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's not a first round pick, or maybe even a second round pick, and then he's going to be a staple in the NFL. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think he got overshadowed last year by Brisker, and he got overshadowed this year by Porter. And he was a key cog in both defenses. The one thing about Tig at the next level that concerns me a bit is he will miss tackles occasionally. And it's a concern when you're a safety, but I still think he's going to be a productive pro, because if you could force turnovers, they could overlook that. It's not like he's a bad tackler. You know what I mean?
Who was the cornerback for the Bears for a long time? Like to strip the football.
There's Daniel Manning.
And more recent than that, like middle 2000s, maybe even not early 2000s.
Don't remember.
I'll think of it and come up with it. But very notorious for causing turnovers, but not necessarily always making the right play, but would make the splash plays, if you will, that kind of, I don't know, excited teams and really made up for any mistakes that they may have had. I'll figure it out and let you know in a second. Let's get on to the offense. Charles Tillman, by the way.
Good one. That's I like that.
Yeah, that was random.
I could see that for him.
Okay, offensively, no offensive player in the Big Ten first team, not a single one, by coaches or media. I can't necessarily argue that because of what Ohio State and Michigan did, but I don't know. I guess I can't argue it, so I'm not going to try, but I'll just move on. Nick Singleton did win Big Ten Freshman Player of the Year, which, if you ask me, Sean, his biggest competition would have been Abdul Carter and Katron Allen. So, if anything, maybe those votes would have hurt him, but it didn't. Olu Fashanu earned all Big Ten second team from just the coaches, not even the media, which is just crazy. Nick Singleton, Juice Scruggs, and Brenton Strange earned third team from the coaches. From the coaches. And then Singleton and Olu Fashanu got third team from the media. And then honorable mention by the coaches, Sean Clifford, Parker Washington, Hunter Norzad, and Sal Wormley. And then an honorable mention by the media, Brenton Strange, Bryce Effner, Hunter Norzad, Juice Scruggs, Katron Allen, Parker Washington, Sal Wormley, and Sean Clifford. So 10 offensive players, when it's all said and done, Sean, got mentioned. So that's 23 total players for Penn State being mentioned. I think you're going to be mad about the Juice Scruggs thing, so I'm going to let you talk about Juice Scruggs.
Yeah, Juice Scruggs is the best center Penn State's had since A.Q. Shipley. And I don't think it's particularly close. And you're going to tell me that first off, the media doesn't even name him as a first, second, or third team. And that's unbelievable. And you're going to tell me from the coach's perspective that there are 3 better centers in the conference than him. Just don't buy it. He is another guy that if he went out when we had all the injuries we had, everything would have fell apart on their offensive line. I'm almost certain of it. He really held that thing together in November. And having an intelligent and talented center is incredibly overlooked with the offensive line. Like, look at last year with Mike Miranda. I mean, it's night and day. And I don't mean to throw shade at anybody here, but Mike Miranda, he shouldn't have been a starting offensive lineman at the Big Ten level. And Juice is one of the premier centers that I saw all year. So I think it's unfortunate that he wasn't at least second team.
Yeah, I should say that the Michigan center, I'm not gonna be able to say his last name.
Yeah, he's one of the best.
He's very good. And Michigan struck gold with him transferring from Virginia. Mm-hmm. He's a Remington finalist at Virginia, so it wasn't like he came to Michigan and became a star. He was already a star. But to think that there's like 3 other better centers than Juice Scruggs this year, and you're right. I mean, he stayed, he kept the whole offensive line afloat when there's a lot of injuries everywhere. So he has not yet said if he's coming back or not for his extra year. If he chooses to, Sean, the offensive line is going to look really good. But that's one I agree with as far as he probably deserves some more love than. And people will say, well, how did Fashanu, fall so far down if he's supposed to be a top 10 pick? I mean, that's, again, just kind of goes back to what people want to see versus what needs to be seen.
And he was hurt.
That's a good point, too. Yeah. I don't have anything else to add to that news. The only other big thing that I think we need to mention before we get into the breakdown, which has been a lot of news today, Christian Veyer into the transfer portal. Obviously, number 11 quarterback, played in the Rutgers game last year. Did not see him very much this year because Drew Aller beat him out in the summer. And so he was the third string guy. Got in a little bit, had that fumble, I guess 2 weeks ago now. in scrap up duty, mop up duty, if you will. But he is out. I'm interested, Sean. I think Veyer, I think you tweeted it. I agree. I think he's a Power 5 quarterback. Think he can do some really good things. However, there are a lot of quarterbacks right now that have just entered the transfer portal. I saw Cade McNamara is in the transfer portal. I said that like a lot, and then I can't think of any, but I swear I saw like a bunch that just flooded into the transfer portal that I'll probably think of a little bit later into the show. But there's some competition in there. I mean, there's going to be teams that need quarterbacks, but there's also a lot of quarterbacks kind of in the market right now.
Yeah, 'tis the season. I think December 5th is when you see a bunch of these guys. I think you could. I think that's when you could officially enter. And yeah, Veyer is going to be a pretty hot commodity. I think I have a feeling he's going to end up with the Big Ten team, and that kind of sucks. But I think he will, and I could see him do well. Place like Wisconsin, is Graham Mertz back? I mean, that kid sucks. I would take Veyer over him right now. Yeah, and I've barely even seen Veyer, but Mertz can't play. And then maybe Notre Dame. So there are teams out there that I think would be very interested.
What about an interesting one for you? Will Levis today announces he's going to go to the NFL. What about a Veyer to Kentucky?
Yeah, we can keep the pipeline going.
I want to say Oregon's quarterback Jay Butterfield. He's a former top 300 recruit. He went into the transfer portal. Texas quarterback Hudson Card, who
that's right, I saw that.
Was I want to say he was like a top. I want to say he was a former, maybe he was just a 4-star. Number 59 overall recruit in the class of 2020. So he's entering the portal. I said already that Cade McNamara is the Missouri quarterback. Tyler Macon is in the transfer portal as well. That's just some off of the list. Jeff Sims, who's the Georgia Tech quarterback, he's also into the transfer portal. Oh, Alex Padilla, the Iowa quarterback. Yeah, he's in the transfer portal as well. So maybe didn't end it on a great note there with the Iowa quarterback, but there are some talented guys out there. I think
Padilla was behind Spencer Petras.
Yeah. So that should tell you all. I still think Petras had some blackmail on somebody. I mean, there's no other way. There's no other way. But we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see where he ends up. I'm sure he will not be the only Penn State transfer. I'm not going to throw out speculative names yet, but there are some guys that I think will end up in there, and I will not be very surprised of. I think offensive line, Sean. I think you can see maybe some of those second and third string backups that didn't play very much this year. I'll be very interested to see where some of those guys end up, because there are some guys coming in. I mean, you saw what JB Nelson did. He was obviously a little bit different scenario, but he's still only sophomore eligibility, so he's got plenty of time. Drew Shelton, sophomore eligibility after this year, and then you obviously got the young guys coming in behind him in the 2023 class. I'm just those, I'm talking about, John, those guys. I don't want to say any names, but those guys that played sparingly this year, but are kind of in that third string role that maybe they would start at a group of 5 level, but they're probably not going to start at Penn State, and they only have maybe a year or two of eligibility left.
Sure, and that's normal. That's extremely normal in today's day and age. It even was normal back in the day, but especially now. A new thing, though, that I think you have to keep an eye on is some guys you wouldn't expect, some guys that play a lot, that might even start, that might even be good players for you. Maybe a former coach or a friend of a coach calls them and says, hey, what about here? Good NIL deal here. And that's the type of thing that I think all schools are going to have to worry about. So I think it's important to have our NIL ducks in a row to take care of our our star players, and not even like the superstar players, but the guys that play a lot and the guys that do have a lot of good game film, because the Sharks are, not to name any names, but the Sharks, Lincoln Riley, are going to be in the water, and they're going to be looking to poach because they've been known, certain guys like Lincoln Riley have been known to do that.
I ever tell you that I've met Lincoln Riley?
Where at? Used car lot?
No. I went to the College Football Awards in 2018. That was when they invited us down for Nittanyville. And I was like suit and tie at the awards and all that stuff. Maybe he was used car salesman talk, but he was actually really nice to me. So
the only problem I ever had
with Lincoln Riley.
Only problem I ever had with him was when he took the USC job. He was on with SVP on ESPN, and he said, he was like, we made a decision this morning about it. It was the day after their Oklahoma State game. Like, no, you didn't.
Because he said, what did he say at the press conference? Like, he said he technically didn't lie, but it was a I don't know.
Very weaselly.
He stretched the truth. Yeah, whatever he said. Yeah. I forget what it was.
Yeah, everybody makes $100 million deal over breakfast. That's what everybody does.
Should do that more often. Yeah, no, and I don't want to name names either, but I can see some players I won't be surprised of potentially testing the market, and we'll get to that and we'll see what happens. We did have a football game on Saturday, Sean. You went to the game. I mean, again, we were able to successfully bully you into going to the game. The weather.
I didn't have to get bullied into this one.
So it was just cheap ticket, nice weather. What was the deciding factor?
Bingo, combination of those two.
Which, by the way, exciting news. I put money deposit down on season tickets for next year. So
here.
Yeah. Yeah, the weather looked pretty good for the last game of the season. You can't really complain with what you guys had. A little worried there for a little bit, weren't you, Sean? I think you're more worried than I was.
I was, but I wasn't terrified. I wasn't like I was during the Purdue game where it was just like panic button. Because I believed in this team that they would find a way to do it. The most nerve-wracking part of the game for me, though, was the 4th and 1, and we're in the T formation, and we flex out of it. I'm like, oh boy, we're putting this in Cliff's hands. And Cliff, I mean, he was very good on the last drive. That ball is in the air forever. And I'm just like, please catch it. And then we had numbers on that side, which I knew, but that was just such a long horizontal pass. And it felt like it took 6 years off my life, but it all worked out.
It did take a while to get out there. A certain former quarterback probably would have skipped it to Nick Singleton on that play. I know they converted on a 4th and 1 against Ohio State on that similar situation and flexing everybody out, but man, that does make you nervous. I was fully prepared to win that game 21-16 and Penn State not score again. The defense just find a way to hold on. But the only thing that made me nervous was Peyton Thorne, and I was battling with some people on Twitter where people were trying to tell me that Peyton Thorne was having a better game than Sean Clifford. And I was like, no, this dude literally was dribbling twice and then fadeaway jump shotting it into the middle of the field. And miraculously, his wide receiver, credit them. I mean, they made some serious catches. We're just coming down with everything. I mean, I was like, what? How many times can you throw like a lollipop into the middle of the field and someone just the one, Jair Brown, literally had like a hand on it, and the dude still somehow was able to catch it. Even the touchdown, like I know you don't want Kobe King guarding a wide receiver in that situation, but he did a pretty good job, all things considered, and it took a one-handed catch to beat him. I mean, it was just, for a minute there, it's like they can't drop anything. And They were getting good pressure on Peyton Thorne. Everything was fine. And this guy was literally just boop, 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 boop. And multiple 3rd and longs they converted on. And I was like, oh, here we go. Like catching everything under the sun. And yeah, that was a big, like, I was just disgusted. Like, this team isn't even doing anything good. They're just getting extremely lucky, but you just sound salty on Twitter if you try to say that. But there's no other way to say it, because then that next drive, after Penn State scored that touchdown on that play that you just talked about a second ago, Peyton Thorne tries to do the exact same thing, and Kalen King picks him off. And I'm just like, thank you. Like, that's all you were doing the whole game. About time we made you pay for it. It just was like, and then I gotta say, to get that interception and then to put the dagger on the very next play, I don't know if we've ever even seen them do that very often, but the very next play, boom, Keandre Lambert-Smith, touchdown, and that was it. Just like that. It was like, thanks for coming out. Thanks for, letting us, Sean Clifford's probably like, thanks for letting me play a little bit more, but goodbye. And that was the end of it. And I will say that I thought this whole time that the spread that I had bet on was 19.5. And so when it was 19, I was like, man, I'm really going to miss this by a half a point, but it was actually 18.5. And that final touchdown actually sealed it for me. And whoever else might have got it when it was still at 18.5. I think it eventually went to 19. So if you were too late, sorry, you don't have a buddy like mine. Shout out Higgs. But no, Sean, that was, to me, the defense played well the entire game, and I guess I was just frustrated that Peyton Thorne was looking good because of some incredibly lucky plays.
Yeah, what is it with Michigan State quarterbacks? It was that way with Brandon or Brian or whatever his name is, Lewerke. It was the same thing. That guy wasn't even a good quarterback. But against Penn State, everything clicks for him. That there are certain guys, and I have a term that Mike and I use. It's called fun ruiners. And it's mostly random guys that with Penn State just ruin our fun. Ricky Stanzi. He might be the OG fun ruiner. For those of you who don't know, might be a little too young for Ricky Stanzi. He was the quarterback for Iowa in 2008 who ripped 13-year-old Sean's heart out of his chest and ruined our chance for a national championship. And then the next year he goes into Beaver Stadium and beats us. And Brian Lewerke, same thing, 17, and then an 18. And he had that receiver, I think his name was Felton. He was just kind of an average, above average receiver, but against Penn State, he became Randy Moss every time he played us. And then this past time, this past game and 2021, it was the same thing. It was the same thing. Peyton Thorne just throwing stuff up. Naylor last year coming down with things. And I mean, it's just the Michigan State thing. But the key difference between this game and 17, 18, and 21 is we won the game because we made plays at the end and we were able to bury them. So huge credit to the team. It's hard to go through a month of football without facing any adversity. And that was the only adversity they faced the whole month, and they handled it with ease.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't have the exact number. I think Penn State outscored opponents like 160 to 45 or something like that in the month of November. Yeah, I think you're exactly right as far as all of that. They were able to. I think that 2-point conversion, when I didn't get that, I think that kind of calmed everybody down a little bit as far as, where, I guess in my own opinion, like, I thought, okay, they're down 5. I think we're going to be okay at that point. And sure enough, that was kind of the case. I want to give credit to Sean Clifford because obviously we're running out of time to do it. I think PSU Analytics, native PSU Analytics, and for the bloggy, I think this was officially one of his better performances of all time at Penn State, statistically speaking. He went 20. Is this right? Oh, no, it's not. He went 20, was it, or 19 of 23? Is that right? My numbers got all mixed up
I
here.
think I remember saying 19 to 24.
Yeah.
So he was in that neighborhood.
Yeah, 19 to 24 for 200 yards, 8.4 yards per pass, 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions, and I think he ended up running for no yards. So the no turnovers obviously is the biggest thing with Sean Clifford. You could argue maybe he would have a fifth touchdown if Keandre Lambert-Smith doesn't steal one from him on the trick play. I said it on Twitter, and I'll say it again. I really think that's like the perfect curtain call for Sean Clifford. I mean, 4 touchdown passes, you get the win over Michigan State, which, by the way, I think Sean mentioned it. I mean, he dominated Michigan State in his tenure at Penn State, which kind of goes to show it wasn't his fault that they lost some of those Michigan State games. I mean, he had, I think, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head again, but I think it ends up being like 13 total touchdowns and only 1 turnover against Michigan State, something close to that. I mean, he had a really good time against Michigan State, and they didn't have good defenses the last 2 years, but still, I really thought this was a good moment for him to say, this is it, we're done. Ended on a touchdown pass. His first touchdown pass. His first pass in Beaver Stadium was a touchdown pass. His last pass could have, is going to be a touchdown pass, and he could have been done and over. And we know now that that's not the case. He said he is going to play in the bowl game, etc. I am on the. I guess I've been quoted. I've been recorded saying I think Sean Clifford should be done. I think Drew Aller should get the start in the bowl game. But that does not mean he did not have a fantastic game on Saturday and deserves a lot of credit for it. I wouldn't put it to the level of the Purdue game where I think Sean Clifford won it because I don't think it was that deep. But Penn State did run for like 3.6 yards per carry. They didn't have a great day on the ground, and he was forced to make plays without his best wide receiver, and they were able to. So I think he deserves some serious credit there.
Yeah, he played well, but I think fans, like, it felt like a quiet 19 to 24 for 4 touchdowns. It felt like the quietest ever. So, you're kind of like, well, why? Like, because it felt like a lot of fans were still mad at Cliff. I know, shocker. And I think it's because we went into one of those patent lulls that have been common in the Sean Clifford era. But the thing with those lulls is they're not always his fault. He was under pressure for most of the game. And the offensive line, especially in the first half, did not play well. And yeah, was there a play here and there that it seemed like he stepped up into a sack and he didn't? Yeah, there was. But for the most part, he was under fire through the whole first half. And the run game wasn't there like it had been for most of the game. So there was a lull there. So I think people have a knee-jerk reaction to just blame that on Cliff. And I really don't think this time really wasn't on him. So it's just one of those things that happens in Big Ten play, guys. And it sucks when you're in the middle of it, but even when you have a quarterback who's above Clifford's level, you're going to have times where your offense isn't clicking on all cylinders, especially when you're down your 2 starting tackles.
Yeah, the offensive line, probably their worst game of the season. Just no other way to put it. I'm glad you mentioned that. They just didn't play very well. I mean, it is what it is. But that's what I'm saying. I think Sean Clifford deserves credit for getting the job done. Even in those situations, a couple times he was able to make somebody miss some way, some shape or form, and either run or throw the ball or just do something with it that most quarterbacks probably get sacked in that situation. So that was cool to see. Tight end play, really good. I think that's safe to say. The receivers, Keandre Lambert-Smith, it was nice to see him have a big game with the touchdown pass throwing, and he also caught the touchdown pass and they ended up with like 80-ish yards receiving. So that was nice to see. Nobody else crazy stepped up receiving wise. I think the tight ends, Theo Johnson, is going to be. I think he's really gained some confidence here. Tyler Warren had a big day, had a fumble recovery and had a touchdown. Yeah, they're really firing all cylinders, and all three tight ends technically can come back next year if they choose to. But Sean, I want to get to the defense and I guess talk about some guys specifically. Abdul Carter. I mean, I don't know how we don't talk about Abdul Carter again. Leading the
He's
team in
not
sack.
bad.
Yeah, he's leading the team with sacks. He's leading the team in TFLs, and he's only a true freshman. I think on someone on Twitter, I think I misread them when I tweeted saying that he was better than Micah Parsons. I'm not trying to say he's better than Micah Parsons right now, but there is no doubt in my mind that Abdul Carter is better than Micah Parsons was when he was a freshman. I don't think it's honestly even that close. Now, to be fair, Micah Parsons didn't play linebacker in high school, so there's a little bit of a learning curve there. He also didn't get as many snaps, I guess you could argue, because he didn't start. But I think Abdul Carter has gone to the next level. Daniel Gallen from 24/7 Sports put it in an interesting way that Parsons was never really allowed to rush the passers, especially in his first year, as much as Abdul Carter's been able to do, and that's where a lot of the splash plays have come from. But I don't care. He's shown his ability to chase people down. He's shown the ability to fight off blockers in some situations, although he can improve. He's done okay in pass defense, although it can improve. And then, yeah, he's been great in the pass rush situations. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and when Micah was here his freshman year, James Franklin and Brent Pry were very careful with him in pretty much every way. And they took their time. And it's because, let's be real, Mike had maturity issues on and off the field. And I think they were very slow with putting more and more on his plate. With Abdul Carter, from every indication, this guy is a pro as a freshman. And he has a professional mindset already. And that is exceedingly rare in not just today's day and age, but in any day and age, that a guy has, not only the physical ability, but also have it upstairs and have your head on straight. And, think about when you were a true freshman in school. If you went to college, think about how you were. I mean, I remember when I was down at Penn State for the first time, my head was spinning. And I was not playing linebacker starting as a linebacker at Penn State. So it's a huge credit to Abdul Carter, not only as a player, but as a person, for being as mature on and off the field and being ready to handle everything that comes with being a starting linebacker at Penn State and excelling at it. And being, I don't want to say this definitively, but he's the best freshman linebacker I've seen this year and it's not particularly close. So he might be the best freshman linebacker in America. And we have him for the next 2 years, provided a global pandemic doesn't ruin a junior season, something we know a little bit about.
Yeah, let's avoid the global pandemics for multiple reasons if we can.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, not great. Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. I don't need to harp on it more. I'm very excited to see what he does next year. I really want to see Curtis Jacobs come back because then he can just play Sam. You can leave Carter at will, and everyone's happy. You could technically get, for all intents and purposes, all three linebackers back next year, which would be pretty sweet. So that'd be nice. Kalen King had a really good game. I wanted to give him some love. They went after him a little bit. I think he ended up with like 7-9-ish pass defenses. Regardless, I think as far as passes broken up, I think he leads the country right now in passes broken up, which is just, again, insane, especially when Joey Porter Jr. is doing whatever he's doing on the other side, which maybe gave him more volume, you could argue, I guess. But no, he's been phenomenal. He had the interception, obviously. But he just doesn't back down. I thought he made some really nice tackles throughout the season too. So big credit to him. Adisa Isaac, I want to give some love to as well, because I thought Adisa Isaac really turned it on in the second half of the season and has done some really good things. So some love to Adisa Isaac as well. Anyone else, Sean, that you want to mention on defense?
Yeah, because Izzard. I mean, that guy he might be the only guy on the whole team that I could say every game he brought it, because, and I'm including the Michigan game. He low-key had a good day that day. And I think it might be a little spicy. I think he's the best defensive tackle on the team right now. He could just do more than anybody at that particular position. He's good he's stout against the run, gets after the passer, bless you, Corey, off camera. Like, the guy just brings it every single game. And I couldn't be more excited about him. And yeah, Kalen King, I want to second what you said. That was his best game in my mind. And they continued to throw at him, which I thought was odd, but their whole offense seemed to just be throwing up jump passes. And Corey actually texted in our group chat, so he's a real Nostradamus. He was like, a pick is coming. And it was pretty obvious that if they kept throwing jump passes up, especially if Kalen King's around, he's going to pick it off. And he did. So I thought he held up very, very, very nicely in coverage. And yeah, and like I said, Keziah, great game. And Chop Robinson is starting to get home more. And guys, like with him, and if Adisa Isaac could come back, and Denai Dennis Sutton, I think, is going to take a big step forward between this year and next year with the dual Carter blitzing from the linebacker spot. I mean, all of our top pass rushers conceivably could be back next year, and they're playing at such a high level right now. I mean, you gotta be pumped, and we need them because they didn't show up like they needed to against Michigan and Ohio State. So hopefully they take that next step and they're ready to go against those two top teams next year, because Michigan's a new team to beat in town and Ohio State's not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sean. Nick Tarburton, I think, deserves a little bit of. I think Penn State's going to have to find.
Yes.
Maybe Denai Dennis Sutton was going to fill into that role well, but I think Nick Tarburton did a really good job against the run. And sometimes you don't get as much credit being the unsung hero as far as doing that kind of work. But I think Nick Tarburton wasn't a question mark coming into the year, but we weren't really sure like how productive he was going to be. And I think he gave Penn State a ton of snaps, not just because he had to be out there, but he provided a ton of really good snaps. So that was a really nice, pleasant surprise for the defensive ends. We jinxed Jake Pinniger because we didn't talk about him, and then we talked about him, and it kind of messed everything up. And he had what you would consider one of his worst days. Again, he could technically come back. We don't know yet, but he did not really make anyone feel any better about him coming back if he decides to come back with his performance. 2 missed field goals. They both were in the first half, I think, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because we could have been up 20-0.
That's right. Yeah. And at that point, it's a whole different kind of game. So I don't want to like blame it on him specifically as the reason why it was still a game, because that's not how that works. Defense still could have held them from preventing a field goal towards the end. But when you miss a short field goal and then they make a 51-yard field goal the other way, I mean, that one burns a little bit more inside. So no other way to really put it. It stunk. It wasn't his best day. This is vintage Pinniger at this point. Just when you think he's got it all figured out, he throws you a curveball. So I don't have anything more to say. Barney Moore had a nice punt. It's kind of crazy that Barney Moore, is going to be done after this year, right? Like, this is it for him? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's Paquetta season next year. Maybe we'll figure out how to say his name next year.
Maybe. No promises there. So he had one really good punt, so that was nice to see. But otherwise, I think that's all I have special teams wise. Nothing crazy besides bad things, I guess.
Yeah, Pinniger. Uh, and you know something? We talk a lot about Clifford being the quintessential college quarterback. Jake Pinniger's a quintessential college kicker. Like, he just, yeah, you never feel safe with him kicking. And we were singing his praises all throughout Big Ten play. He made the ingenious decision in the Ohio State game to miss field goals, but we got the ball back because he was playing 4D chess, and everything else he was money on, including from long distances. And then on Saturday in perfect conditions, I always check to see if the wind's blowing. It wasn't. He missed two. They weren't chip shots necessarily, but they were just beyond being a chip shot. And I don't know, man. He is tough to figure out. And it seems like when he misses one, he gets something happens to him. I don't know. He's very streaky. Kickers tend to be like that, especially college kickers. And you just have to live with it. He's only going to be there one more game because he did run out on senior day. So I'm expecting him not to be back. But just because you run out on senior day doesn't mean you're definitely done either.
Yeah. Sean Clifford came back. He did senior day twice. So.
Right, exactly.
We'll try to see if we can get you to go away here in a second. Sean, looks like you're covered up. There you go. See ya. Yeah, that's all I have for the Michigan State. If you're cool with that.
Yeah. I mean, it was fine. We won by 19, and
you consider Michigan State a rivalry at this point?
For the Land Grant Trophy, of course. No, I mean, in all seriousness, sort of. But it's the same way that I view Ohio State a rival. I mean, we're not their main rival. Michigan is. So it's the same kind of concept.
In the lens of rivalry counts for like 7 points. So if you think you're going to beat Michigan State by 14, you're really only going to beat them by 7.
No. I don't. Do you?
Yeah. I don't either, but I do think that it counts for something. I'm not sure.
There's a lot of bad blood, but I think a lot of that was with D'Antonio and Franklin. I don't know if there's any bad blood between Tucker and Franklin. No, doesn't appear to be.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
You know, we talked about how big of a game that was, and we knew Michigan State was going to come out firing, and Penn State had a chance to put them away, and they never did. By the way, I was only off by 2 points on my prediction when it was all said and done, so close.
Yeah, I was expecting a blowout. They hung around.
They did. But, I mean, again, they were – and I don't know if you know how this works. So now that they are most likely not going to go to a bowl game, first of all, like in Penn State practice this week, if they don't have a conference championship, like are they allowed to practice this week? I don't think so, right?
I don't think so. I think that's against the rules. I think you have to practice at a set time. I think everybody has to practice at a set
So they can't practice until they get a bowl and they accept a bowl invitation, and then they get their 30 practices or whatever it is.
I think that's how it works. I think it's after you accept, and then, well, our guys are usually off Monday, so I think they'll be able to practice starting Tuesday.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, those guys then starting next week, Michigan State's just done?
I think so. I think they just go home.
Yeah. So I mean,
I guess.
I think that's not talked about enough as far as the development. How much 30? Everyone talks about like you get 15 practices in the spring, 30.
I think it's only 15. They don't practice like they used to.
No, I think it's 15 too. So people talk about the 15 practices they get in the spring, and everyone wants to talk about spring ball. Literally, the bowl practices are twice as much, and no one really gives that much attention. But that's basically a fall camp is what you're getting. No, you're getting more than a fall camp, really. And no one talks enough about how much those practices really mean, and that's big time if you're competing with Michigan State. I mean, I don't know how much you really are, but they beat you last year. And so to send them home without an extra whatever amount of practices it is, that's big time. So uh
Yeah.
yeah, I mean to stifle the development of a program, nothing's better than keeping them from 6 wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get 6 wins, you could decline the bowl invite. And I am team always accept the bowl invite. And I think it's mostly fans that kind of like how we were last year, that just want to be done with the season and just want to move on. But that's very short-sighted thinking. Like, you have to think of these bowl practices as for the future, because they mostly are. Is there a game to prepare for? Yeah, but you're mostly developing what you have coming back next year during those bowl practices typically, and then you do prepare for the team you're playing too. But especially if you're not in a playoff game, you're really focused on what you're planning on doing next. You have your eye on the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Penn State fans definitely have their eye on the future. We're going to get to the fan questions in just a second. Quickly, PSU in the NFL, Micah Parsons, 3 tackles, 2 more sacks for him. Miles Sanders, big day for the fantasy. Big day for the fantasy. Pretty much won me my game. 21 carries for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chris Godwin, another big day for the fantasy. 12 catches, 110 yards and a touchdown. Saquon, not so much, only 39 yards rushing, but did have a touchdown. Nick Scott intercepted Patrick Mahomes, so that was cool to see. Adrian Amos, 9 tackles as well. Sean, did I forget anybody? Is there anyone you want to talk about?
Nakasicki.
Yeah, he almost cost
Nakasicki.
me. He almost cost me the game.
Yeah, he had one of those games, and it's because he's only a pass catcher. It's weird. They played Cedric Wilson a lot more, but that's enough Dolphins talk. And Saquon, yeah, it wasn't a great day for Saquon, but a lot of that is because we have to report Penn State on Penn State crime, and when you have to deal with that Dallas defense, it's fierce. And Mike is the reason it's so intimidating. So, and the Giants and this might offend Mike and Alex if they're listening, they're an overachieving team. And they're a team that's about a year away from really contending for anything. So it's been a fun ride, but when Saquon's not going, when they're not opening up the holes for Saquon, that team's not going to win a whole lot of games.
Hopefully they're not listening to you. Yes, I think that's all we have for that. We're gonna get into the fan questions in just a second, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 questions, Sean, that we're gonna discuss. If you ask a question on Twitter, we decided we're just gonna take it. So we took.
Call me James Franklin at a press conference.
Yeah, basically. So we're gonna get to those in a second. So buckle up for those. But before we get there, the Spotify Wrapped thing came out today, and look, we're on Spotify. I think we actually have enough ratings where we show up with the ratings now. So we have a 5-star rating on Spotify with I think 30 ratings, which is sweet. More people listen on Apple. Doesn't really matter. The point is though that came out and we got some statistics back and we were like increase on everything by 999%. And I think the only thing that was 999% was followers, and that went up by 222% or something stupid like that. The point is, you guys listened a bunch. We had I don't know, over 100-something people that were listening, that we were the #1 podcast that they listened to. So just a lot of cool stuff like that, and we appreciate it. It's nice to see the feedback, especially again, Spotify is not the main place where we get a bunch of viewers, but obviously to some of you that is, and that's awesome. We do still need 6 more 5-star reviews on Apple. I will say someone gave us a 5-star rating on Spotify, and I'm actually going to read what they said because they DM'd us on Twitter, which again, if you give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or you drop us a 5-star review on Apple, we will send you a sticker. And if you leave us a note on Spotify or message us, I'm going to read it. And then obviously on Apple, we'll read the review on the show as well. We need 6 more for 100 on Apple. So we would really, really appreciate it. I don't know if this person wants their name said, so we're not going to say it. But They said, "Hey guys, leaving a 5-star review on Spotify. Great podcast. You both put a lot of time and thought into each episode. A great time listening each week. Feel like the Chappelle meme without one episode this past Sunday. Keep up the great work." Isn't that awesome?
Thank you. Yeah, that's very cool. And yeah, looking at the stats from the year, I mean, it kind of goes to show you just how much we've grown, and we've been listened to in multiple countries. There's apparently somebody from the Philippines listening, and Sweden, and Canada, of course, the U.S. I think I'm missing a couple, one or two, but yeah, like all over the world, and that really surprised me. I was like, wow, there are people really listening everywhere. So hello, Sweden and the Philippines, and of course the good old U.S. of A, America.
Yeah, I don't know how well. I don't know how those work. I couldn't. I mean, maybe there's somebody stationed somewhere that is
Could
a
be.
Penn State fan. I don't know if that works like that or not, but I'll take it. I'll learn Filipino. I don't know what don't they have like multiple languages there?
I think so. There are different dialects, I think.
Yeah. I
And
don't
I
think
know
it's Filipino.
Swedish. I think Swedish is the closest language to English. Fun fact.
Interesting. And speaking, nope, getting my countries wrong. Never mind. Not Sweden, but close to Sweden, Netherlands.
Netherlands.
Not that close, but sort of close. In the Europe theater, they're kind of close. Big game for USA this Saturday.
Yes, I've watched a grand total of 20 minutes of the World Cup because I'm American, and it was cool to see us beat Iran. I'll say that.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we got way lost there for a second. But again, thank you guys so much. Again, 6 more reviews away. We're trying to do it before the end of the season. We would need a Christmas miracle, I think, at this point. And we were trending really well for a while, but I don't think we've had one for almost a week and a half. So if you haven't yet, go on Apple, drop us a 5-star review. We'll read it on the show. We'll send you a sticker. We would like to get to 100. If we get to 100, maybe we'll do like a giveaway for a hardcore PSUFB hat or something like that for everybody, like a raffle or something.
Pizza
but anyway,
party.
pizza. Oh yeah, the pizza party. I forgot the pizza party. How could I forget about the pizza party? These are going to be just kind of random spitfire order, Sean. So are you ready for the fan questions?
Lay them on me. I'm like Franklin on a Tuesday.
All right. Well, let's get started with the fan questions now. Thank you again for the fan questions. Hardcore PSUFBs. Again, we always have a tweet that's pretty much up there saying we're taking questions. If not, we'll remember what your questions are. We'll get them answered for you. We took all of them. We have 10 of them to go through today. This one is from Brennan. Oh gosh, right off the bat, Malinovich. Malinovich. I bet it's Malinovich. That sounds right. Not a great start for the pronunciations by Corey. I don't know why it says last question. Maybe I missed some questions, but we're just going to keep going with this. Do you think it would be valuable to find a running back in the portal this year with the possibility of Kevon Lee entering? Montgomery is coming in, but would benefit to redshirt due to his injury. Looking at someone similar to John Lovett from last year to play 2-3 series a game and special teams. Thank you for the question, Brendan. Yes, I think it would be beneficial and valuable. I don't think it's dire need. I think we actually might have. Maybe we don't have another question on this. I don't think it's like super duper like has to be done. But he brings up a good point with the running back London Montgomery, 2023 commit, had a knee injury. Don't know the timetable for his return, but those knee things aren't something you just come back to right away. And so yeah, he might be pushed up against the timetable. And honestly, having just 3 running backs on scholarship is probably not where Franklin wants to be. I still think they might make a run for a running back in the 2023 class, an additional one. But yes, Brennan, I think if there's somebody out there that fits what they want, I do think they should go do it, and I think it would be very beneficial if they are able to, Sean.
Yeah, I would too. I think even if you do bring in another running back, I think you have to consider taking one in the portal. The hard part will be finding somebody who would be comfortable being a backup to Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton. Because yes, if Lee decides to part ways with Penn State, and that's a big if. We don't know if that's definitely going to happen or not. Yeah, it's not going to be that easy just finding somebody who will play third fiddle. And I'm also skeptical if London Montgomery is going to be ready for fall camp. He's probably not. At prep, knowing prep the way I do, I don't know if they're going to let him enroll early. So yeah, I think it's important to find somebody in the portal just to be able to be a compliment. I like the John Lovett comparison. I think maybe you could sell special teams a little bit and be like, look, maybe we could maybe if you're a good punt returner or kick returner, we could use you in that role.
Especially as there's not a clear punt returner for next year, with Parker Washington's future still a question mark. Obviously injured right now, but we don't know if he's coming back or not yet. And we saw two different guys in the last two games returning punts this season. So maybe that's an opening as well. And then also Nick Singleton, as great as he is, how many times do you want him back there? We saw him back there a decent amount. He obviously had the one kick return for a touchdown against Rutgers, but is that somebody you want back there every single time? Sometimes what they did with Saquon was in certain moments they had him back there, but they didn't have him back there all the time. Well, who would then replace him? They've tried Daquan Hardy, but they don't necessarily have a crazy awesome threat. So maybe that person could fill that role too.
A name to keep an eye on too in recruiting is Christopher Johnson. He's from Florida. He's going to be visiting Penn State on December 9th. He was a Miami lean, but keep an eye on him. He's from, like I said, he's from down there in Fort Lauderdale. So
from down there.
Yeah, down by Corey.
Okay, so I guess I got these questions backwards because this is also from Brendan Malinovich, which I'm again hoping we're saying right. Apologize.
There you go. It's rolling off the tongue now, Corey. You're doing good.
I definitely had more confidence when I said that one. Do you realistically see any of the key assistants leaving for a head coaching job this year? Sider, Diaz, Yurcich, saw Sider and Diaz name floated for FAU. I feel that PSU is a more quality job that can land a better head coaching job elsewhere. Whew. When that FAU job opened up, I think it was the first thing I did was text Sean and say, maybe I don't understand how FAU wouldn't call Manny Diaz. I think that would be silly if they didn't at least try. I don't know what that means as far as possibly getting him. I will say this, Sean, before I hand it off to you. And we've said this before in the last month or so. I don't see Manny Diaz leaving this year. I think he had a good year. He's a semifinalist for the Broyles Award that goes to the top assistant coach. He did not make the finalists for the Broyles Award. I think he had a good year. I would even say he might have even had an above average, even great year. But I think there was still some work to be done. I think he had his opportunities in the Michigan and Ohio State game to really make some money, and he did not do that. And so I think at least one more year will be beneficial for him. I think Sider is always a guy that you're going to have to pay attention to. There was rumors last year about Florida State kind of coming in there and offering him more money for the same job. So I don't know. You're asking for head coaching specifically. I don't know how long you keep Sider away from an offensive coordinator job or a head coaching job. I know in the past he's been like, hey, it's got to be the right fit and all that. But finally, someone he didn't mention, and Yurcich I don't think is going anywhere yet either. But one person they didn't mention is Terry Smith and Poindexter to a certain degree. But Terry Smith's been there forever. And it's going to have to be the perfect head coaching job for him. But maybe he doesn't want one at this point in his career. But you got to think as far as like if you're going to take a chance on an assistant coach, I think I'd feel if I was trying to hire somebody, I think I'd go after Terry Smith, in my personal opinion. I just think he's shown longevity that maybe some of the other guys haven't yet. And I don't think Poindexter's far behind him. If Poindexter didn't take the Virginia job though, Sean, I guess I don't
I don't know if he
know.
was offered it though.
That's true. And there's rumors about what kind of went down, and they weren't going to offer him what he wanted as far as assistant
Yeah.
pool, whatever, if that was true or not, who knows. Poindexter's eventually going to leave. I just don't know if it's going to be this year or not. So that's the great segue into the off season, where we say that a lot. But that's all I got, Sean.
Yeah, and look, you guys know the way it is. There's almost always vacancies on the coaching staff. I don't know if there was between 16 and 17. But that's really the only time since Franklin's been here or since O'Brien's been here that there haven't been vacancies. So Sider, look, guys, there's a reason we recruit well in Florida, and it's because of J1 Sider. So naturally, you would think, well, he could just go back to Florida, can he? But there's something about Penn State that keeps him here. So he's hung around for he's been here since Charles Huff left. That was Miles Sanders days. So he's been here quite a while. And I don't think we thought that would be the case when he first got here. It looked like kind of like a Manny Diaz situation, like maybe 1 to 2 years, but he must really like it here. And his son played for the football team, so I'm sure that played a role. Yeah, Manny for the FAU job. I mean, FAU is I had to look it up. It's in Boca Raton, which is about 45 miles from Miami. Fun fact, Manny Diaz's father was the mayor of Miami, which I didn't know until a few weeks ago. And I'm kind of a political junkie on the side.
Dude.
Yeah.
He's royalty down there, man.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I had no idea he was the mayor down there. So he has infinite number of connections in Miami. But maybe he's thinking bigger, and maybe he's thinking, look, he could have a really good defense next year coming back. We already talked about how he has all his pass rushers back, and he's going to have the linebacking core, which was probably the biggest weakness on defense this year. I think has a chance to be a strength of the team if Curtis Jacobs could come back. So there's that. Yursich, I'll be honest with you guys. I don't think Mike Yursich is going to be a head coach. And I don't know if he has the personality to do that. And it's not a slight on him, but not everybody could be the main guy. I think he is more slated to be a play caller, just based on what I've heard from, he coaches his guys hard, and he's more of a specialist in passing, play calling, that sort of thing. I don't know if he'd want to be a head coach. So I think we're pretty safe with Yursich for the time being. And Poindexter is going to be a hot name, and he's going to be a hot name for as long as he's here. If Manny Diaz were to get a head coaching job, I think there's an excellent chance Poindexter would step in and be the defensive coordinator, for better or for worse. And yeah, I think someday he will be a head coach. Like, he's a guy that when you hear him talk, he has a presence about him that you need to be the main guy in the room. Yeah, but that's who was the other guy you talked about?
Terry Smith.
Yeah, Terry Smith was rumored to be interviewing for the Temple job last year, and I don't know if he turned it down or he didn't get it, but I kind of think Terry Smith would only leave Penn State if it was a job in Pennsylvania. Like, maybe, and I don't think he coached Pitt because he's a Penn State guy through and through, but I think only something local, because he really specializes in locking down Pennsylvania on the recruiting trail and being an excellent cornerbacks coach.
Well, let me throw a name out to you, though. Let me throw a team. What about Syracuse?
Maybe, because it is in the region. Maybe. Yeah, I should clarify that a little bit. Somebody in the region. I can't see him going to, like, somewhere in Texas and coaching. I just can't see that. And again, not an insult to him, but he's been in Pennsylvania his whole life.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on it. Obviously, there's a lot more time to have those conversations. I almost said Brennan Armstrong. Brennan Malinovich, thank you for those questions. Moving on, Cowboy Ribeye provides his next question here. Do we need a transfer portal wide receiver to win the Big Ten next year? I know that hasn't popped up yet for you. Sean, do we need a transfer portal wide receiver to win the Big Ten next year?
Yeah, I think so. Because I haven't seen enough from the group that we have coming back, and that's including Parker if he comes back to be. I mean, look, in modern day football, I think the 5 most important positions are quarterback, edge rusher, left tackle, lockdown corner, and number 1 receiver. And I don't think we have that number 1 receiver. I don't think we have it on this team right now. And I like the receivers we have coming back. Do I think Keandre Lambert-Smith is talented enough to be that? I do. But I got to see more consistency. And I haven't seen that this year. He had a great game against Michigan State. Hopefully he could build off that. But I want to go in the portal and get somebody a little more proven. And Dante Thornton Jr. just went in the portal. For those of you who follow recruiting, name should be familiar to you. He was a Penn State commit for a period of time. He's just leaving Oregon. He's from Baltimore originally. I would be making phone calls, and I have a feeling James Franklin is, based on his Twitter interactions and following people, and Drew Aller following him. So keep an eye on Dante Thornton.
Wow,
Jr.
Sean, I didn't know you were going down that road. Wow, look at you. Do we
that.
follow him? I think we follow him.
Who, Thornton?
Yeah.
Don't know. But if he's listening to Hardcore Penn State Football podcast, Dante, just come here and play football for us, please. Thank you.
It's hard to figure out. Does he have an apostrophe in it?
It might be a TA. I'm not sure how he spells Dante. I don't think his name on Twitter is Dante Thornton Jr.
I was gonna say that's, I think, what's throwing me off.
I don't think it is.
But
because I saw people retweeting it, and I was like, who's this guy? And then I saw in the post he signed a Dante Thornton, and I was like, oh, there he is. So yeah, a guy like him. There's a guy from Missouri, name escapes me, that just went in the portal, and he had a great season last year. So yeah, I think we need someone in the portal. And hey, maybe Keandre Lambert-Smith or Parker or Harrison Wallace, maybe they step up and they are that number 1 guy. But to have someone else with those guys, so yes, I think it's important to go and get somebody.
We do follow him on Twitter. Just everyone is curious. It is IMDTJ11 on Twitter. He does not follow us back at the moment.
He will.
Yeah. He just tweeted 4 hours ago, had to take a risk and bet on myself. So I agree with you, though. I think you gotta have to go get somebody else. Did you mention a Caden Saunders stepping up? Did you include him?
I should have. Yeah. Omari Evans, Caden Saunders. I mean, look,
Yeah.
KJ didn't play his true freshman season, so maybe there is somebody we have here. And KJ was nursing an ACL tear, but maybe there is somebody, that hasn't played a whole lot or hasn't played at all yet that could step up and be that guy.
I guess nowadays, with the 4-game kind of rule, if you haven't seen somebody play, they must have either been hurt or they really aren't, I guess, close to breaking into the depth chart, I guess, is just the only way to say it, right? I mean, and that's just not a knock, but just like at this point, you get 4 games to prove who you are. I mean, if they think you're willing or able to really contribute, they're going to get you out there, right? I mean, is that safe to say without sounding rude?
Pretty much. And look, some guys just take time, and not everybody's ready out of the box, and that's okay. That's okay. It doesn't mean that, oh, this guy's gonna suck. I mean, look at Carl Nassib. It took him 5 years to be who he became, and he ended up being an All-American. So it's not like you shouldn't quit on these guys or anything like that. But so yeah. But I do get what you're saying for sure, that the guy is either injured or not ready
Yeah.
yet.
Next question. This is from Chris with Olu Fashanu. not so Fashanu. Coming back, what is the most needed transfer portal piece? I don't want you to answer that question, but whatever, you can answer that question too. It was a second question because she threw in a lot at us. Because I don't want to get to that third question either, so I'm not going to say it. How many transfers will we take is what I actually wanted to get out of that. I guess the quick answer is as many as we need that will fit the right mold of what they want. But I mean, like, I guess we could take it off of last year, right? So they took Chop, they took Tinsley, they took Effner, and they are not Effner.
Effner wasn't
Norzad, sorry.
Norzad.
Um,
That might have been it. I have a feeling there's somebody else though.
Amor,
if you don't include the JUCOs.
Amor was some previous.
Yeah, if you don't include the junior college guys, yeah, that was JB Nelson.
I feel like there was somebody else that was like low key defensive lineman or something.
Vandenberg was a couple years ago.
Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely blanking because I have a feeling there's somebody else.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So I guess the answer though to be quaint is you will probably see 3 to 4. Now, my ear hurts. Ow. I don't know why my left ear's hurting all of a sudden. With the freshman class doing as well as they did, maybe they don't feel they need to take as much. Last year, they only had 2 or 3 guys break their red shirts. You had like 11 this year. So maybe that plays a little bit in the role too. You got to get Dom DeLuca on scholarship. So you're going to have to wait and see where the numbers all fall, where, who's going to leave, who's going to stay, et cetera. So just hang tight on that. But yeah, I think 3 or 4 really impactful guys that see considerable amount of snaps is probably the right number. At this point, I think you still take an offensive lineman if you can. I think you take a wide receiver if you can. I think you take a linebacker if you can. And I think you take a defensive lineman if they're available. So, I mean, that's 4 right there. Maybe even, I mean, with Smollett coming in, you have 3 quarterbacks, but I think you would even consider taking maybe a group of 5 quarterbacks. Probably not going to get one of them, but maybe an Ivy League guy or maybe an FCS guy, who knows. But I think if you can get a 4th scholarship quarterback, I think you try to do that too.
Yeah, I do too. I think you have to keep your options open at quarterback. It's going to be a tough sell because Drew Aller is there, and he's going to probably be the guy for the next 2 seasons, at least. So it's going to be a tough sell, but doesn't mean you don't try. Running back, we spoke on that already, especially if Kevon decides to move on. Yeah, you have to keep your options open there. If Kevon decides to stick around, then I think it's a little less important to go get a running back. Receiver is a position we need. No ifs, ands, buts about it. I don't think you have to worry about tight end, even if Brenton Strange decides to leave, because we have 2 stud recruits coming in. I think Khalil Dinkins will be ready for a bigger role, being that 3rd tight end. I've liked what I've seen from him. He hasn't played a whole lot, but I think he's got some promise. You could always take another lineman. I want another defensive tackle. I think we're low-key a little thin there, both literally and figuratively. I would like to see us get a beefier guy, like a guy like PJ, to kind of stick in there and be a run stuffer, because we're gonna miss PJ in that way. Somebody who's 320 pounds plus. I would like to see us go get. And you never have enough corners. So we're going to be down Marquise Wilson next year. We're going to be down Joey Porter Jr. Obviously, I would probably try to kick the tires on some cornerbacks.
Yeah, and Christian Driver is going to be playing wide receiver next year too.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. So and the good thing about cornerback position is, number one, there's typically a lot of them. And number two, we have a track record now. And I think people have watched Joey Porter Jr., people watch Kalen King. So we're kind of known now, as opposed to before, for being a place that you could develop as a quarterback.
Yeah, and I don't think we have anywhere where we're talking about it, but Daniel Harris, I saw, picked up another crystal ball type thing.
Yes, sir.
To Penn State, and that's a corner for the 2023 class that was committed to Georgia. So that could play into one of those guys that you could potentially see playing at least in 4 games next year. Potentially, again, he is what they deemed Joey Porter Jr. like with his arms. So that is quite the compliment, because Joey Porter Jr. Yeah, I don't know if you ever like slap boxed back in the day, little hand fighting. I don't know if anybody. I don't know if Joey Porter Jr. ever lost any of those with those arms. Let's go to the next question. This is from Sean, not Sean Clifford, although it is Sean Cliffer is his Twitter handle.
Is this Cliff?
Might be his burner.
This is burner? Hi, Sean.
The only question I want to answer on this one, he asked 3. We're just going to answer 1. How confident are we feeling about Rodney Gallagher and your boy Thornton that we just talked about? I haven't heard anything actually about Thornton yet. I mean, we talked about, that he was formally committed, but I haven't actually heard any rumbling of who he's considering yet. So I would kind of slow down on that a little bit more than everyone else is kind of saying. The guy, again, went to Oregon, but probably could go to like 80% of the schools to play. So wait and see on that one a little bit. Penn State does their due diligence on these things, so it's not a guarantee. I will say this: they act faster on the guys that they know better already. So, like, for example, Chop Robinson. So maybe that plays a role in that, and maybe gives Penn State a little bit of an advantage that they usually kind of self-impose on themselves because they want to do more research. But keep that in mind. I will say this about Rodney Gallagher. Went and visited this past weekend at Penn State. Looked really good. Had been there a bunch of times, so that wasn't anything new as far as being there. Likes Penn State a lot. Still technically committed to West Virginia, but as of today, West Virginia, they got a new athletic director, and they have decided to keep Coach Neil Brown. So Neil Brown is not going to get fired, which you have to think that probably hurts Gallagher's chance of coming to Penn State. You would think if they keep their core together, although if you're on the brink of getting fired, maybe you have to make changes anyway. But so keep, I think it's possible still, but I'm thinking maybe that the Neil Brown retention might hurt the Rodney Gallagher to Penn State a little bit.
It could. It's hard to look at USC with Clay Helton. Really, the last 2 years that he was there, they struggled on the recruiting trail. It's because people typically don't want to go play for what they see as a sinking ship. Brian Harsin faced the same thing. A lot of that was sabotage, but he faced that because there was uncertainty about him really since the middle of last year. So when you have that, it's tough to keep guys committed and to get guys to come play for you. Gallagher was at the game. Appeared to have a good time. It was a nice day to be there and fun game to be at. It was pretty competitive. I could see him ending up in the class. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. It's tough to flip someone, but he was seen as a Penn State lean early, like Corey said. He's a guy that the staff is very familiar with. And I think, and he's somebody that when he committed way back when, we said this one's probably not over yet. And we might have a chance to come back around with him. And we do. So I'm going to guarantee something about Rodney Gallagher. I have a feeling, I'm going to guarantee it. His first game next year is going to be at Beaver Stadium.
Yeah.
I feel really confident about that.
See what you did there, Sean. I see what you did there. We'll see if that happens.
Stop.
Let's move on to the next question. That was clever. This is from
Thanks.
the Nittany and Badger, a Big Ten football podcast. They've given us some love before, so make sure you're following. I don't know what their handle. I think it's Nittany Badger. If you put Nittany Badger, you'll probably get close enough to find it. But they are very active on Twitter, so we appreciate them. I think their personal accounts are also active with us on Twitter, so we appreciate that as well. With all of the returning talent, and we have two of these questions, and I think I included both of them. With all of the returning talent, is it playoff or die trying next year? Or does Coach James Franklin get to 2024 when the offensive backfield are all juniors? Drew Aller, Singleton, Allen, Katron Allen. Could be expanded playoff in 2024 too. And by the way, I'm going to break the news now. The Rose Bowl has signed whatever the hell agreement they had to sign, and it is official that they can go ahead and expand the college football playoff in 2024. The 12.
I'm ready.
Which, I mean, if we're going to talk playoff real quick, I think 12 is too many teams personally. But I will say this. They do all those cool edits and whatever, and Penn State sitting at 8 would host 9 Clemson in State College. That is the only true benefit to the 12-team playoff, in my opinion. I would much rather see an 8-team playoff, an 8-team, not 18, an 8-team playoff where people still host. But I get the bowl games. You can't do that, blah, 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 blah. So if you're going to go 12, the benefit is these quarterfinal rounds being at, that's the best part about it.
But the sun set at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah. Anyway, this question, is it playoff or die trying next year, Sean?
Define die trying.
I don't know. I don't want to go as far as Hugh Freeze escorts, but.
It's beat Michigan or Ohio State or die trying. You have to be able to slay a dragon at some point if you're James Franklin. You have to be able to beat a top tier team. And it hasn't been since 2016 that we haven't beaten a top 10 team. I mean, you have to be able to win one of these games one of these days. And it's 10 straight or 10 or 11 straight now. And it's not acceptable. It's not. And I'm very happy with the job James Franklin did this year. It's tough to win 10 games in the Big Ten East, but yeah, it's time. I would say, is the playoff or die trying? The playoff, it could be tough to get in if you lose. I don't need the playoff next year, but I need a Michigan or Ohio State win. That's me. But yeah, 2024, you don't know what the world's going to look like in 2024. Yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to make the playoffs then, especially when you see the talent we have coming back as juniors.
Yeah, I'll just say I don't. This isn't a knock on Drew Aller. I just haven't seen him enough to say he's a playoff quarterback. I mean, we just don't know, and so my expectations are not to that level yet. But I agree with you. I think you got to find a way to beat either Michigan or Ohio State. Because honestly, you beat just one of them, you could be in a 4-team playoff next year. And theoretically, you don't even have to beat either of them moving forward and still maybe even make the playoff. Obviously, that's not what you want to do. But in addition to that, UCLA and USC will be involved too. This one's from Mike Bales. See if this pops up or not. And again, is next season playoff or bust in your opinion? Thank you, Mike. We just answered this, but I thought it would be funny because we got to ask this. I mean, the fever when Olu Fashanu decided to come back, that whole night, Penn State Twitter exploded with, got to win the Natty now, baby. Now or never. I mean, there was tweets all over the place. I mean, there were some very demonstrative emotions being thrown around. I mean, people were just, and I get it, right? but I'm just gonna say let's see. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit. I want to be that excited, right? Like I would love it, but I'm not there yet, Sean.
I think the defense is going to be playoff level. I do. When you look at what you have coming back, you have Kalen King. He's the shutdown corner. You have the edge rushers. You have a linebacker. You have a linebacking core. I think the safeties are going to be fine even without Tig there. Yeah, I think this is a playoff caliber defense. Question marks I have are Drew Aller, because we could look at high school film and look at random passes and mop-up duty and all this until the cows come home. But we don't know how this guy's going to play when defenses are scheming for him, when the bullets are not only live, but they mean something. And you just don't know. I don't know. Corey doesn't know. And you guys
I might know because I know everything.
Corey knows everything, but I don't know. And we just don't, guys. And like I said, I think we need another receiver. So those are the two biggest question marks I have with this team. I think the defense will be fine. But to answer your question, as a playoff or bust, I have to see the offense. If the offense if Aller looks like the real deal, then yeah, I'm comfortable saying that. Yeah, I would say it's playoff or bust.
So the next question comes from our very own Michael Higgins. Change the mood a little bit here. Would you guys rather fight 100 duck-size Olu Fashanus or one Olu Fashanu-sized duck? So again, 100 little Olu Fashanus or one duck that is as big as Olu Fashanu. I'm gonna look up. I don't know if you know the height and weight of Olu Fashanu off the top of your head, do you?
I don't. I can answer the question though.
Okay.
I think the answer is an Olu Fashanu size. I would rather fight the 100 duck-sized Olu Fashanus because ducks are pretty aggressive animals, and one as big as Olu Fashanu, I think I'd stand no chance against. At least 100 of them, I could kind of swat to the side. But one big one, I don't think I'd have it in me.
He's 6'6", 300 pounds. That's a big ass duck. Yeah. Which, by the way, just looking at his 24, I mean, he was a 3-star guy. He was a 32nd offensive tackle in his class, 405th nationally. This was just one of those guys that Penn State and James Franklin and company, we harp on them a lot for the offensive tackle recruiting. They finally got one. And not just what he has as a tackle. I mean, he seems to be the whole package mentally, psychologically. He's got it all. So that's cool. I know that's probably the right answer to choose. I mean, but 100 of them. I don't think you've ever probably seen 100 ducks together. You might have seen like 12 ducks together, but 100 Olu Fashanus, 100 of them. And I mean, these ducks aren't like mice. I mean, ducks are still about a foot off the ground, maybe not a foot, but probably about a foot off the ground. And 100 of them.
They're sizable birds, yeah.
Still weighing roughly about 50 pounds each. And they're not birds at this point; they're people. But a 1 foot, 50-pound Olu Fashanu, that's still a grown man. Just we're not talking about like a kid version of him. He's still grown. He's just shrunk. And 100 of them. I think that's honestly worse. He has center of gravity advantage over you now, and there's 99 of his buddies.
But I could kick them. I have lots of options with that.
Yeah, you could probably kick. I think you could, Sean. You could probably take about 15 to 20 of them. But if they get up on you, I don't know if you have a chance against even 50 duck-sized Olu Fashanus. I mean, again, these are still grown men. We're not talking about 100 Olu Fashanus that are acting like ducks. They're still going to act like grown men that are just smaller.
Yeah, but ducks are pretty aggressive by themselves. So when you have a duck that's as big as Olu Fashanu, that's gonna be tough, man.
Do you think a duck is more aggressive than Olu Fashanu?
No, but I think they go. I think they'd be less likely to show you mercy because Olu seems like a very nice dog.
Yeah. I think this is on the surface, it seems like your answer is the right one. I will say that. But I think as you dive deeper into it and the mind, sometimes it's difficult to really quantify and illustrate what 100 1-foot tall Olu Fashanus look like. I don't think you want to play that game. I don't think you want to go down that road with 100 of them. If it was 20, I think maybe you have an argument. I don't think you'd be able to kick 20 plus Olu Fashanus. Maybe 15, but I don't think it'll be. Again, those are 50 pound roughly. If you're going to take the margins of them, I mean, roughly 50 to 35 pound 1-foot tall men that you're trying to kick.
No. I'm not saying I'd want to fight 100 of them. It would be tough, but it's an either or.
Yeah. Do I have bread with me? Can I
But you
coerce?
bring a prop. We would have to ask Mike.
Coerce the one Olu Fashanus size duck with some bread? I don't know. I think I'd take one. I think I'd rather deal with one duck than 100 Olu Fashanus, regardless of the size. And I know that duck would probably get some good licks in on me. I'm not saying I'd walk away unscathed, but I think I could whoop one 6'6" sized duck's ass.
So he'd pretty much be a bigger version of the Oregon Duck mascot.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So picture that.
Yeah,
But
it was not riding a
about
motorcycle though.
That's that's true. Does he ride in with the motorcycle? I mean,
No, I'm not getting a motorcycle. Yeah, I would. I'm gonna disagree with you there, and we'll be curious what you guys have to say about it. But yeah, I think I'd go with the duck. To be honest with you,
I respect your decision.
just imagine 100 Olu Fashanus lining up to whoop your ass. I don't know if I want to play that game.
Yeah, those are tough options.
Yeah. John Clark says Bo Prabula or Jackson Smolik as QB2 next year. I love how we're getting all the way into these things. We have seen very little of Bo Prabula. Yeah. He was the third string guy technically in the blue and white game. Obviously, Drew Aller passed him up. Obviously, he stayed behind Christian Veyer throughout the season in that third role. He's pretty much been the scout team quarterback from what I've understood. I want to say, I don't think he has, and this could be 100% wrong. So bear with me. But I'm going to go on a limb and say, I don't think I've seen him win a scouting team of the player of the week award or anything like that yet. That hasn't come across something that's just stuck to my mind. My mind catches everything. I never miss anything. But I do not remember or recall him winning a weekly scout team award.
Was Veyer running the scout team, or was it exclusively Prabula?
I don't know if it was exclusively, but
okay.
Yeah, that's all I got on that. So, and we obviously Smolik isn't even here yet. So, I love the question, John. Also, you said so he spelled Prabula wrong. He spelled it Pribula. And then I tweeted back at him and I said Brent Pribula. And nobody got the joke, but I thought it was pretty funny.
I see what you did there. Yeah, I agree with Corey. I don't know. Maybe I'd be able to give you a better answer after the blue-white game, but the blue-white game you have to take with a grain of salt as well. It's just too soon to tell, and they were both very similar recruits. So I don't know. That's kind of the answer.
I think I'd go if you're gonna make me choose. I think I'd like with Olu and the duck here. If I had to choose, I think I'm gonna go with Prabula to be the number 2.
I go Prabula. I mean, I guess gun to my head, I go Prabula only because he's older.
Yeah, he's a gamer.
He's got a year.
I think he's got a gamer attitude in him.
Yeah, we heard the Trace comp. that he's a lot like a little taller version of Trace. So I guess, but I want to see what Smolik can do.
This was the last good abstract question to round out the fan questions, which I realize is most of the show, but we kind of thought that going in. We wanted to answer all of your questions as we get to this point in the season. This one is from Paul Bishop. Hopefully it'll pop up in a second for you guys. Should the transfer portal be treated I haven't popped yet. Should the transfer portal be treated a little like the draft and just get the best oh man, I can't read it. It's too small for my screen. But just get the best athletes instead of being specific.
There it is.
There it is. Thank God. Couldn't read it on my
being
little
specific position focused.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I read that question wrong when I first was thinking about it earlier. That's not at all what I thought it said. I thought that was like, should we just make the portal the draft and every team gets the pick? I'm glad that wasn't what was asked. That's actually a good question as far as just getting the best guy. This is actually a fantastic question.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, and I was looking at the questions. This was my favorite one because I could take it. So I think when you evaluate any transfer possibility, you're thinking about fit but I think you're from a culture perspective and from a talent perspective, I think first. Are there going to be some needs you prioritize? Yeah. Like if we had a quarterback available, well, let me put it this way. Like with Clifford, every single year, I thought we should look in the portal for a quarterback. The problem was there was never a quarterback better than Sean Clifford in the portal. But every single year, I was like, we got to look in the portal for a quarterback. Why? Because I wanted to upgrade. So yes, you always keep your options open at those important positions in my mind. Even if you're set there, you think you're set, you could always be a little bit better. And like the thing that makes it different than the NFL draft is you only have so few scholarships. So if you have 2 or 3 centers you feel really good about, and like the guy from Virginia from last year that Michigan got comes available, you don't really need him. You know what I mean? But positions like edge rusher, you never have enough edge rushers. So if there's an elite edge rusher that comes available, you find room. You'll be able to, but you have to keep scholarship. You have to keep in mind how many scholarships you have. So to answer your question, it depends on the position. Some positions I'd be very open to. Corner is another one. And some positions, no, I'm good. Tight end, that's another position. We don't need a tight end in the portal this year. There'd be really no need to bring a tight end in. So while I think it's mostly, it's mostly talent, you have to look at it from a talent perspective and trying to bring in talented players, regardless of the position. You also have to keep in mind where you have to keep both in mind, I guess, in where you need it and where it would benefit you to get a transfer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just add to that too that the other portion of this is fit in the locker room, and you're not going to want to bring in somebody that you're not sure about that. And so if you're going to go with it instead of being specific to the position, I just would also throw in there, don't bring in a guy just to bring in a guy if you're not sure about what that could do to the whole locker room. So, Mitch Tinsley came in, wasn't an issue or anything like that. But I think there's been circumstances in other teams where they brought in somebody that didn't help that situation. And you got to be careful with that. And sometimes they come in and they're team captains. So, yeah, I think you did a good job answering that. I think, some of the skill positions, the athletic positions, I think you can just take a shot on them. I think other positions you kind of have to be a little bit more careful about it, because just because they did well maybe it wasn't because they're a good athlete. Maybe there's something else on why they did so well last year. Like you could say a right tackle did really well last year. Well, maybe their right guard was really good at wherever they were and relieved some of them. Or maybe it was a right guard that did really well, but it was really because their right tackle and their center was really good. So I think it's hard to just in a vacuum do that. I guess, Paul, to answer your question. But I think to a certain degree, yes. If there's a freak athlete, you go ahead and maybe you take that risk if they check all the other boxes.
Yeah, culture fit's very important. We got very, very fortunate with our transfers, like AK and Tangelo and Chop. Like these are guys that you hear just as good reviews on the field as off the field as on the field. Like these are great culture guys.
I don't think it's even a luck thing at this point. I really think that they miss out on some guys in part because they want to make sure they fit the culture, right? I mean,
that's true.
I think they deserve a little bit of credit
thing
for
too.
it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because you have to do your due diligence, or you're bringing guys that are involved in fights in a tunnel. And I'll leave it at that.
And there are and that's a good example. And there was examples of guys in the portal last summer, even where Penn State was even considering them, and some of them had some potentially questionable past. And so and they end up not getting some of them. And maybe that wasn't part of it, but I think it's hard to really argue, even at linebacker, that it didn't work out in the end.
And when you bring a portal guy in, there's usually a reason. And sometimes the reason is fine. Like AK, he was playing at Temple. He was looking and he was probably like, well, I'm probably going to be a 4th or 5th round pick. He went to Penn State, maximized his potential. He was a 2nd round pick. Derek Tangelo's on the Falcons right now. I believe he went in the 7th round, or I'm not, or was he undrafted? Okay. But Chop Robinson, I think he is more. I think he saw himself as being more useful as an edge guy than a linebacker. But there's some guys that leave because they're a pain in the ass. I mean, let's be real. Or they think they should have more playing time, and maybe they're just not that good. And you have to be very careful with that. And knowing, and the key thing is knowing the difference between this guy just wants to maximize what he has. This guy had a legitimate problem with the coach. This guy is a pain in the ass. So you have to be able to differentiate all that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you for the fan questions, everybody. Again, Hardcore PSUFB is where you can find us and tweet at us your questions. We appreciate it. And now we can get into the kind of the final part of the show today, and that is the bowl projection things. Like we just said, that was one part of the breaking news. The other kind of big part of the breaking news was that, according to Rivals, and then I think The Athletic also got a source, that Ohio State has talked to the Rose Bowl and says, hey, we don't want to go to the Rose Bowl. We've been there 3 of the last 6 years. This would have been 2 in the last 2 years. They don't want to go to the Rose Bowl.
That sucks, doesn't it?
It does. It's awful for them. They would rather go to the Orange Bowl. And so it seems like there's some serious possibility that Penn State, if everything would kind of be normal for championship week, and assuming a USC win and Ohio State does not make the playoff, that Rose Bowl would take Penn State over Ohio State. Now, of course, that Purdue's going to win on Saturday now and completely mess everything up in its entirety. So the Rose Bowl is looking very good for that reason now. If everything's normal, it sounds like maybe it could be the Rose Bowl. If everything doesn't go normal and Ohio State squeaks into the playoff as well as Michigan, they'd still go to the Rose Bowl. So I would, as far as bowl projections go, I guess now at this point, at this juncture, Sean, I'm pretty much, I don't want to say I'm locked in, but I'm pretty close to being like 80% Rose Bowl, 18% Cotton Bowl, 2% Orange Bowl at this point.
It sounds about right. It sounds like Ohio State is angling for an Orange Bowl rematch with Clemson. They had an Orange Bowl there, I think, when Taj Boyd was the quarterback of Clemson, and they played in the Fiesta Bowl the year that they got the playoff bid over us, and they got pantsed. And then they played in the semifinal game again, and they played in 2 semifinal games, and they split. So a little bit of a rivalry there, and I think they'd be angling for that, but I'm not really sure how that would go down. As far that they might end up in the Cotton Bowl, but I don't know. But anyway, back to Penn State. Yeah, it looks like I'm with Corey. It looks like the Rose Bowl is most likely now, and that's a big shift from last time where I thought wasn't positive because we still had another week of football left, but I felt pretty confident we were going to go to the Citrus Bowl. And thankfully we're not. It looks like we're going to be going to the bowl that I believe most fans wanted to go to. And we'll be playing a team from the Pac-12. And I think Pac-12 is pretty good this year. And we'd probably be matched up with Utah or Washington or maybe USC. I think USC is probably the least likely out of those. But Washington or Utah would probably be the most likely possibilities. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge success this year to go from where we were last year being a 7-6 team. Everybody's beating the 11-11 record in the 2020 and 2021 to death. I mentioned it a few times as well. That would be such a big step to be able to go to Pasadena, and it'd be so great for these kids.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the fact that the Citrus Bowl was looking likely, and now the Rose Bowl is looking likely. It's a big turn of events, but I think it just goes to show that everybody's in the universe is trying to prove me right as far as being 10-2 and going to the Rose Bowl, like I predicted, I guess 3-4 months ago now. We'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, things change. If you want the Rose Bowl, you obviously want Michigan to win. You want pretty much no chaos to happen. And then you just assume it doesn't really matter if USC wins or loses at that point. If you really want the Rose Bowl, you still want USC to lose, in my opinion, and you would want TCU to lose. That would solidify it.
But it would be very funny if Michigan lost.
It would be very funny if Michigan lost.
But it wouldn't be that funny because they're still in the playoff no matter what. But it would still be funny. You know, they'd be like, oh, they still lost to Purdue.
Yeah. And now what gets crazy is if Michigan, TCU, and USC all lose, does Ohio State and Michigan still go? Then you would have maybe Purdue would have to go to the Rose Bowl. But then does that open up? I mean, who knows what happens at that point? It gets stupid. So
yeah, I mean,
Kansas State would then have to go to the Sugar Bowl.
Sugar Bowl, yeah.
Then TCU would still have to. That would actually probably hurt Penn State the most. Penn State would probably go to the Citrus Bowl because they wouldn't get. Because then TCU would probably go to the Cotton Bowl, and you still would have Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. You'd still probably have Alabama in the Sugar. Maybe Alabama squeaks in there. I don't know. It gets messy fast.
Yeah.
Maybe Penn State still gets the Cotton Bowl because then Tennessee would probably get the Sugar Bowl. Maybe Penn State would still get the Cotton Bowl.
Well, if TCU's out, though, Ohio State's probably in. So we would still go to the Rose Bowl.
No, Purdue would go to the Rose Bowl.
Oh, if Michigan lost. Okay, you're saying if Michigan lost. Yeah, that would be bad.
That would be so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of possibilities, and this is kind of a chaos year, guys. This is a year where there's been a lot of weird stuff that happened. I think the top 2 teams are Michigan and Georgia, but we'll see come playoff time. I think those are the 2 top teams. And, you know, watching Ohio State, and I know they might make the playoff, that was an embarrassing performance on Saturday. I mean, that was to just hype yourself up the whole year and get embarrassed by even more at your home stadium. I have a hard time putting you in the playoff. But I mean, it becomes a question of who else are you going to put there? You're not going to put Bama there. I wouldn't because they have 2 losses. We've gone over their wins. I don't think they're much better, if any better, than Penn State. You're not going to put Penn State there because we lost to Ohio State. I don't know. I mean, I guess you put them in there if SC gets tripped up. But man, oh man, that was a horrible performance from Ohio State on Saturday. And Michigan's a new team to beat now, guys. I mean, to do it twice in a row for the first time in 20 years, there's a new team to beat in town. So, but Ohio State's still pretty good. So it's time to be excited for Penn State, but you have to be cautiously optimistic because there's not just one team to leapfrog anymore. There's two.
Yep. Well, that's all we had today. I do want to say there's some little bit of not breaking news, but news we might as well add to the end of this, and that is that Penn State has offered a scholarship to former USF wide receiver Jimmy Horn Jr., who went into the portal earlier this week. He's already getting followed. He's already followed by Stacy Collins and Rashad Rich, who is in charge of Penn State football recruiting, as well as Zane Durant, which
Florida guy.
Take it for what it is. But very fast wide receiver from USF. So keep that one in mind. We were just talking about wide receivers earlier, so that could be an interesting one there.
The receiving room does need speed, so that would be nice.
So we'll see what happens there. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening again. Drop a 5-star review. We'll read on the show. Want to get 6 more there, but we appreciate you guys nonetheless. We will be back Sunday with, I think we're going to do, obviously, we'll have to figure it out, Sean, but I'm thinking we do Sunday night because we'll know our bowl prediction. We'll know where we're going bowl-wise if you can pull that. Maybe if not, maybe we push to Monday night just so we can have the bowl to talk about. But we're thinking recruiting heavy and bowl heavy for Sunday. And we're going to have Adam Bittner on the following Wednesday. I'm assuming he's going to talk to Drew Aller. So we'll probably talk some Drew Aller with good old Bittner on the following Wednesday. So that's all we have. Thank you so much for listening. Hope everyone has a fantastic rest of their week. You got anything, Sean?
No, I'm excited to get the chance to talk to Adam again next week. It'll be change of pace having a heavy recruiting show. It's been a while since we had that, but look, guys, signing day is in a few weeks, so we have a lot to get to, and it's going to be a busy recruiting time after the championship games. These coaches are hitting the recruiting trail hard after and they're doing the bowl practices. So these coaches are very busy in December, and we will be too.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. So we appreciate you guys. Someone asked us, I don't know if they want me to say their names. I'm just going to say somebody had mentioned to us, we were joking about going out to the Rose Bowl and getting that paid for by Kevin Horn. But they asked us hey, if you guys ever did something like that, we'd be willing to contribute. And that's not something we're looking at doing this year. But if you're ever trying to figure out a way to show your gratitude to us, the easiest thing to do is to make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to the podcast. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and just share it with somebody. Just share the Hardcore Penn State Football podcast, or just retweet us on Twitter. Just the littlest things like that. You'll be surprised how much that makes a difference. Twitter's been fantastic, but that's just the easiest way. We don't need you to spend money. We do have stickers for sale, and we do have hats for sale. The margins for us making money off of those is very, very low. It's more of just the fact that we have that stuff because it's kind of cool to have it. So if you want to get a hat, knock yourself out. I like my hat a bunch, but and that isn't another way to support the show. But really, I mean, it's just the little things. It's the retweets. It's the conversations. It's the questions. Those are the things. The 5-star reviews. Those are the things that we appreciate the most.
Yeah, Corey, I actually forgot to tell you this. At the game on Saturday, these guys behind us saw me on the Twitter account, tweeting stuff out. Corey and I were both live tweeting during the last game. And And he asked me what the Twitter account is, and I said it's Hardcore Penn State Football, and he was like, "Oh, I'll give it a follow." And he was with 4 or 5 different guys, and all of them gave us follows on Twitter, and they said they'll listen to the pod. So, hi guys, if you're listening. So,
Told him I give them a 2 hours in, baby. What's up, everybody?
Yep. So I told him I give them a shout out. So, hello, people from WFU.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yep.
We'll give him another shout out on the beginning of next episode too.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll give him 2 chances instead of waiting to the very end.
Yes, I kind of buried it in the lead. That's my bad, but
no, that's fantastic. So appreciate everybody so much. We will talk to you Sunday night probably. We'll talk, Sean. And until then, you've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. For Sean Kane, I'm Corey Listoki. See you next time.